For more on the APEC meetings and the inclusive growth that he just spoke about, we spoke with Scott Miller, Senior Advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies here in Washington. He explained why some member economies are actually celebrating.
Well, it is a forum for economic cooperation, and certainly there will be some celebration because of the recent conclusion of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which affects, at this point, 12 of the 21 APEC economies. So that's probably there'll be a few high fives there, but I think there's a serious agenda beyond the TPP.
One of the agendas that I'm hearing about is this inclusiveness, and I always think it's a very, very broad term. Maybe you can help me. What does being a more inclusive economy actually mean?
Well, the way we'd stated in the United States is opportunity for all. And I do think economies vary in terms of their inclusiveness. And I think there's certainly space on the economic policy agenda to improve the degree to which everyone participating in the economy has the opportunity to advance.
I mean, isn't in large part of that, I mean, yes, you want government support, but you also want businesses and corporations to be investing in different regions and capital expenditures and having the wherewithal to hire a sort of a diverse workforce, to hire local people with local talents to ensure that the prosperity is, as you say, more broadly enjoyed by all, right? What's the role of corporations in this?
Well, I would agree with that certainly companies have a much broader supply network than they have ever had. There's utilization of many more local suppliers. There's utilization of small companies in many markets because of the nature of global value chains. First and foremost, companies are in the business of satisfying and serving their consumers, but they do that by engaging with all sorts of economic actors on the ground and in remote economies. So there's lots of span there. I would start at a little more basic level, which is the ability to start, operate, and expand a business, and the difficulty of doing so varies greatly in the economies. And this is probably where every economy could move up the scale of inclusiveness by making it easier, more straightforward, more predictable to be able to, for individual entrepreneurs, to start a business, run it, and expand it.
What specific policies are you suggesting?
Well, first, let me just note that the World Bank does a great job of assessing how easy or difficult it is to run a business in their annual Doing Business report. I would also note that 4 of the top 5 performers in the World Bank's global survey of 189 economies, 4 of the top 5 are APEC economies. So there are some APEC economies, and I believe it's Singapore, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and Korea, all quite very different economies in their composition, who are performing very well along the measures of making it easy and predictable to start and operate a business. Those economies are more likely to be inclusive than the ones with lower ratings. There are some APEC economies down in the 140s on that ranking list.
I'm not sure where the Philippines ranks there, but I often think about when an economy is stable, and by the way, the countries you highlighted all have very stable economies, versus countries that have perhaps a less stable backdrop in terms of politics, makes it a little bit harder, makes it a little bit more skeptical for entrepreneurs to want to say, I want to jump in here, because they're going to be worried about, number one, the capital they invest in, and number two, the fairness and their ability to compete with their competitors, right?
I agree with that. And the Philippines, I think, is around 102 on the scale. So there's a lot of room for improvement. Predictability and stability is a factor, but also the simplicity and clarity of the regulations and the degree to which cost of the regulations is manageable. In many countries which do have political stability, but where there's a greater difficulty opening a business, what we see is a flourishing of the informal economy. The informal economy makes it hard for companies to grow. Companies in the informal sector tend not to engage in trade. Therefore, they tend not to be partners of larger firms in the region, and that ultimately works to their disadvantage.